Okay, so we wrapped our Zack Snyder's Justice League, all right? And I talked about how there's the Restore the Snyder Cut, the hashtag going on right now. People wanting to him to continue his vision, make the other Justice League movies he wants and stuff and whatnot. Um, yeah, let me go into that. Okay, so people want to for him to restore it. And Snyder Cut, the Zack Snyder Justice League is very evidently has been very successful for HBO Max. Unfortunately, there were two movies that are kind of connected with those, especially the DCEU, that they just announced that they're not going forward with. One in particular really ties in to Zack Snyder's Justice League is was New Gods. New Gods, talking about Tom King, who wrote a very epic run on Batman. He also wrote Mr. Miracle, a Mr. Miracle comic. He also wrote a Vision comic for Marvel. Um, Vi- Vision comic and the Mr. Miracle comic were very similar. Yeah, we talked about how his run in Batman was a lot about his relationship with Catwoman. So the way he writes, the way I've seen in these three things particularly, he likes to deal with more of the personal issues of a superhero. Mr. Miracle was about like his relationship with his wife Big Barda, who was part of Darkseid's army, and they have a kid together in this, and it's kind of like family life, kind of showing you some of the action stuff in the background, but it's more about their family life. And the Vision comic, they pulled a lot of that for WandaVision. So since he did really good, this Mr. Miracle comic he did, I sent you that, Brian, for you to read. So read that sometime. Uh, the since he did so well with this Mr. Miracle comic, they brought him on as a consultant to help write the New Gods movie. New Gods um, is okay. So Darkseid, which was the main looming villain for Zack Snyder's Justice League. The way the story goes, pretty much, I want to say in a nutshell, but the way I explain things isn't very nutshelly. Um, okay, so there are two rivaling planets that were in war with each other. Apocalypse, which is Darkseid's planet. Darkseid is the ruler of Apocalypse. Is pretty much hell. I mean, the planet's on fire, and like everybody who lives there, the citizens are called lowlies, and they're just like they're tortured and they live in hell. And okay, so there's Apocalypse, and then there's a planet called New Genesis, which is the opposite. It's like heaven. It's a utopia, and the ruler of that is the High Father. Um, so so they're at war with each other, and they decide they're going to call a truce. They're going to make this peace treaty. The peace treaty is that they both have infant sons. And so the peace treaty, as messed up as you want to call it, they exchange sons. So Darkseid gets to rule Highfather's son or raise Highfather's son, and Highfather gets to raise Darkseid's son. And so Darkseid's son, in which Highfather raises, is Orion. I was talking about in a wrap for Zack Snyder's Justice League how I went ahead and I watched the episode of Superman from the 90s, the cartoon. There was the two-part where Darkseid was the villain, and Orion and Superman teamed up, and Orion kind of told the story a little bit. So he was raised by Highfather, and so essentially you would think, oh, he'd be the good guy, because he's raised by the good guy. It's not so black and white with this story. So Highfather's son, which Darkseid raised, was Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle, he went on. He became like when he eventually came to Earth, he became an escape artist. That was like he did shows as an escape artist, and like his suit, his superhero costume, is what he used to dress up in for his shows, and that a lot of the Tom King's comic deal talks about that. So his thing was okay. So as they train people on Apocalypse, I mean, it's like on The Dark Knight with Christopher Nolan's movie Dark Knight with Heath Ledger and stuff. No, it was The Dark Knight Rises, where with Bane and stuff, where there was the pit, and you try to climb out of the pit and stuff, and if you do, you're cool, you know. So it's kind of like that on Apocalypse, where this is kind of where Mr. Miracle became kind of got the skills to be an escape artist. He would constantly try to escape. He knew he didn't belong there, and he constantly tried to escape. Now, one of Darkseid's generals is Granny Goodness. Granny Goodness, you see in the Snyder Cut. At the very end of the Snyder Cut, the portal opens, and he's looking at Justice League. Justice League's looking at them. There are three people. There's Darkseid. There's DeSaad. Yep, yes. DeSaad, who Steppenwolf was talking to most of the time throughout the movie. And then there was a lady you see, doesn't say who she is, they don't acknowledge her or whatever, but she's got, you know, short, white, slick back hair and stuff. That's Granny Goodness. In the comics, she's depicted a little bit more heavier, maybe a little bit more older, but it's still pretty cool. We saw her in live action.
Right.
And so, essentially, Zack Snyder's other Justice League movies, which involved Darkseid more, would have probably involved her more. So Granny, she is in charge of training everybody. And like the elite team of Darkseid is the female fairies, like I said. But anyways, we're going with Mr. Miracle. Like, he had constantly trying to escape and stuff. So he didn't really have a name, but Granny kind of teased him, and she gave him the name of Scot-Free. Like, you got off of that scot-free, you know? And so he took that on as his, like, secret identity, if you will. Scot-Free. So Scot-Free, he ends up hooking up with Big Barda, who is, like, pretty much the leader of the female Furies. And Big Barda is, like, 2 feet taller than him, which made it an odd-looking couple, you know? So, I don't know, that kind of explains to you, like, in not such in a nutshell way, what New Gods is. That's kind of the New God story. But with Granny Goodness, DeSaad, Orion, Mr. Miracle, Darkseid, all of them, there's Metron is another character and stuff. And so this was a movie that Warner Brothers and DC was creating. Essentially, the theory, the assumption is that it would be part of either the Snyderverse or the DCEU, because, of course, Justice League had some new gods in it with Steppenwolf and Darkseid and stuff. So essentially, that would have been like their origin story. That would have been their solo movie. So, again, a long scenic route around to take the horse to the water. So you think that would be a pretty cool movie, right? Well, guess what? Warner Brothers dropped it. They're not moving forward with it.
No, they are not. Well, I read, and from my understanding, the reason they canned the New Gods was actually because of the Snyder Cut and that Darkseid was so heavily featured. They wanted nothing to do with that Darkseid. Darkseid.
Yeah, Darkseid.
So because heavily featured, they were like, well, we can't make a movie 2 years later with like the same character. Though, just won't make sense.
Yeah. Which, hey, if this trending hashtag goes far enough, I mean, hey, release the Snyder Cut eventually gave us a Snyder Cut.